Back here on Locked On Ravens and Locked On Eagles, Thanksgiving style crossover Thursday. Kevin Ostrecker, Louis DiBiase still chopping it up with you here. Just a reminder, today's crossover Thursday between Locked On Ravens and Locked On Eagles is brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. All right, Louis, let's get into some keys to victory here because I think both these teams have paths to win and they have paths to lose. So let's start off with you and Philadelphia's side of things. What are three things Philly has to do to make sure they get the job done on Sunday against Baltimore?
Yeah, it's something they've been doing a really good job of. It's staying in the positive zone of the turnover differential. If you're going to give Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry short fields, that's going to be tough for a good Eagles defense, but for them to hang on in that situation, that's tough. This is already a really difficult offense to defend. You're going to be limited right now with, or I should say thin, when it comes to your defensive line. Brandon Graham out for the year. Bryce Huff still has 3 weeks left on the short-term IR before he can come back to the 53. So I think just don't put the defense behind the 8 ball. I would also say be balanced. I want to see them more balanced on offense. Attack this Ravens secondary, which, again, of all things on that roster, is probably the weaker unit when it comes to run offense, run defense, pass defense. And then the other thing I would say is for the Eagles, what I was saying earlier, don't let, and it's hard to say this because he's the greatest mobile quarterback of all time, but don't limit Lamar Jackson making plays outside of structure. Like when you get pressure, you got to find a way to get this guy down. Maybe you have a spy on him with Nakobe Dean or Zach Bond, but if the explosive plays come when he gets outside the numbers, that's when magic can happen. So I know that's a difficult ask because it is Lamar Jackson, but you got to try to find a way to limit him when it comes to the scramble drill.
Yeah, I always say there's so many steps to try to actually get Lamar Jackson down because usually it's just get pressure, sack quarterback.
Yeah,
with Lamar Jackson, it's get pressure and then find a way to not look like you are a high school JV player by Lamar Jackson juking you out of your shoes. And that's just the difficulty. But it's so hard because also when you blitz him, he's solved that. That used to be a weakness. That is now solved. If you blitz him, it's really difficult to stop that. If you don't get pressure when you don't rush guys, he can sit back in that pocket and tear you apart. So it's true where when he gets out of the pocket and he can have his receivers work back to him, or now he's drawing pass interference penalties because it's so hard to cover when Lamar's just jogging out there, seeing what's available. You're going to have to rip a guy or hold a guy to make sure they don't separate from you. So he's like the Torrey Smith of the Ravens of drawing those big pass interference penalties. Now, for the Ravens side of things, three things that I think Baltimore needs to do is, one, they have to clean up on the penalties. I mean, it's getting ridiculous at this point. They're the highest penalized team in the league. They're the only team with triple-digit penalties this year with 101. They average 8.5 per game, which is a lot. You know, usually the saying is what, you can't win with more than 6, and here they are at 8-4, and they're averaging 8.5. So they were able to get the job done with 9 on Monday night. They had 12 the previous week in Pittsburgh and lost. The thing with the penalties is it sets you back. They did a better job of not having that be a thing on Monday night where it wasn't stalling out drives or anything. But they've had many times where they get a nice 8-yard run from Derrick Henry on first down. No, sorry, holding. Instead of 2nd and 2, it's 1st and 20. And that just, it kills you. It's brutal. So just don't make those self-inflicted mistakes. And as a lot of people have said, the Ravens' biggest opponent sometimes is themselves. If someone beats you, have it be the Eagles. Have the Eagles go out there and earn that win. Yeah. Don't give the game to Philadelphia. Second, I mean, this is an easy one, right? Limit, like you said, Saquon Barkley. I don't think you can necessarily stop him. I think he's too good of a player. But the Ravens could potentially be getting Michael Pierce back on Sunday, which would be a really big boost to their run defense. He's been out with a calf injury on IR for the past month or so. So he'd be a big boost to them. But you can't get washed out in the second level. You can't let Saquon get going. And then also trying to stop him as a receiver, which Baltimore has had trouble defending running backs and tight ends out of the backfield at times. So you have to be able, whether it's Roquan Smith in there or not, trying to defend Saquon and limit his damage. And essentially, again, make someone else beat you. Even if it's A.J. Brown, just make someone else beat you. I think you're more confident and comfortable in that, or at least you accept that more because Saquon is going to be the focal point of that offense. And finally, for Baltimore on the offensive side of the ball, I think it's just being able to block effectively. Even though, Louis, you mentioned Brandon Graham, Bryce Huff both not being in, the Eagles still have no shortage of good pass rushers, especially on the interior. Their interior presence, they have, I can't, we'd be here all day if we were to go into a scouting report on all these guys because they have so many of them. We talked about Milton Williams before the show. Obviously, they have a bunch of other players as well. They can generate really quality interior pressure on Lamar. It's not the be-all, end-all. If you get pressure on Lamar, like we talked about, he can escape and make things happen. But he is at his best when he can sit back there in a clean pocket and throw the ball. If he can get out of the pocket, he's still great at doing that. But if you can block effectively, that to me is the really, really big key here, at least for the Ravens side of things.
Yeah, I think that's kind of it for both sides is maybe try to suffocate these quarterbacks and push them up the pocket because when they get outside of the numbers, Jalen, like Lamar Jackson this year, has been very good passing on the run and making explosive plays happen when it's not the design play. So, again, it's not an easy task to stop Lamar Jackson and Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry. I think for defenses, it's both of these defenses really just about limiting those guys. And it might come down, Kevin, this feels like a game where it's going to come down to maybe whoever has the ball last. I think it's going to be a close game in the fourth quarter for sure.
Yeah, I would not be shocked. And then you have two who were, Tucker's the greatest kicker of all time. Jake Elliott's had a really solid career, but two guys who have certainly had their fair share of struggles this year.
Struggled this year for sure.
I don't know. It could be maybe a revenge game for either one of those guys potentially. Tucker was good on Monday night, but man, kickers this year, it's just been a weird kicker year, just across the league in general. I don't even know what to make of it. Now, on the Ravens injury side of things, 3 players didn't practice for them. Charlie Kohler he broke his arm. He's going to be on IR. He's not going to play in this game at all. Arthur Millette has not practiced with a calf or knee injury for the last couple of weeks now. And then Kyle Van Noy, hamstring, neck. He did not practice. Roquan Smith returned after missing last week. Travis Jones, Sanusi Kane, and I mentioned Michael Pierce. They're all also back at practice. So Ravens decently healthy, not fully healthy, obviously, but decently healthy. Is Philadelphia looking okay injury-wise, or what's their situation?
Yeah, pretty much for the most part, they're healthy. I would say there's 2 guys to keep a close eye on. 2 guys did not practice today, one on offense and one on defense. That's noteworthy. Devontae Smith did not practice, still dealing with that hamstring injury that kept him out of Sunday's game against the Rams. He's been dealing with that for about a month now. It's why even when he was playing, after that Jaguars game, he's been pretty limited. So Devontae, we'll see if he can get back to practice tomorrow, Friday. Might be a game-time decision there. Darius Slay still in concussion protocol. He did not practice today, so got Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, but it could be Isaiah Rodgers on Sunday instead of Slay. Slay's been in and out of the lineup a lot this year, so those are the 2 guys I'm watching the most is Slay and Smitty and see if what their status will be. We'll probably know a little bit more on, I would say Friday, we'll have a good idea if they're going to play.
Yeah, that's usually the sweet spot.
Yeah.
And, at least for the Ravens side of things, they like to be very to the vest with their injuries. They don't like a lot of spoilers. Yep. They like any competitive advantage that they can get. So maybe not a ton of news, especially for the maybe game time decision players, but we'll see how it goes. Now, let's do it, Lou. Let's talk about these Thanksgiving sides. All right, give me top 3 Thanksgiving sides.
So I can only load up my plate with 3. That's tough because it's all about the sides for me. I'm not a turkey guy.
Okay,
I'm anti-turkey. If I'm going to eat turkey, I want the dark meat. I want the leg or the
wing. Hey, I'm with it.
So it's all about sides for me. If I had to go 3, number 1 is green bean casserole. You get those French onion crusties over top, too. I know that's not a super popular first one.
Yeah.
Number 2, and this is specific, stuffing, but it has to be stovetop. I'm not a stuffing guy that you put in the turkey. I don't like it soggy. I like it a little crisp. I feel like the stovetop does it better.
Yeah.
And then number 3, just the classic. Give me a mashed potato and gravy. But I'm not one. Can I tell you one that I will never put on my plate?
All right, what?
Cranberry sauce, especially in patty
form. I'm not.
Disgusting. I can't stand it. The marshmallow yams and those too. I don't want dessert on my plate during the Thanksgiving meal. That's for afterwards, and I feel like some of those sides are, I think, just a little bit too ambitious for me.
Well, the thing with the cranberry sauce is sometimes when you get the canned one, it looks like a can of dog food, and you're like, I don't want to.
Disgusting. People just eating that straight up. I would get it if you're spreading it on a biscuit or something.
If you're prepping it,
if you're using it like a jam,
yes,
that makes sense. But some people just eat it like a monster, just the patty itself, just eating it with a fork, and it's. I don't know. It's very unappealing to me.
No, yeah, I'm not a cranberry guy either. Number 1 for me, I gotta go mac and cheese.
I know it's an honorable mention. I like mac
it's very controversial for some people whether it actually is a side or not. I know some people say yes.
My family never used to do it. I finally started to implement it.
Right, and you gotta get the breadcrumbs on top.
You
get multi cheese. Like you gotta have all that. Number 2, I'm going exactly you. I'm going stuffing, and if I had to specify, I'm with you where I don't want it like any turkey stuff. Like I'm just give me it plain.
Yeah,
I'm fine with that. Number 3, I'm going bland. I'm just going a plain old buttered roll. Give me the buttered rolls.
No Hawaiian roll? Is it a specific kind of roll, or what are we talking here? Just a dinner roll?
I'm not too picky. I think the dinner rolls are what I'll go with. I'm not too picky
with the dinner roll, we do a honey butter. That's pretty solid, too.
Oh, that sounds
So it's almost like a cinnamon sugar honey butter over top?
Yeah, I went somewhere... I went somewhere one year where it was truffle butter, and that was nuts.
The rolls, again, if it's top 5, they would probably be in there for me too.
Yeah.
So I don't hate that. That's a good ranking. It's Thanksgiving. Again, it's all about the sides.
Very, very underrated. And I'm sure, look, there are plenty of other sides we could talk about. We could have this conversation for hours.
Don't get me
I'm
started.
sure. Yeah, 100%.